Matt, how are you?
Very good, Tim.
Good.
Thanks for having me on the show, man.
No. Thank you for taking the time out of your day and coming to speak to me. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
my pleasure, my pleasure. I've learned to embrace and enjoy these new forms of communication over the last sort of, especially 4 years. Yeah,
Yeah. So, how is sunny Florida? Sunny today?
very sunny, very nice. In fact, perfect. It's still cool in the evenings
Yeah.
and beautiful in the day. So even with the blinds closed over
Yeah.
here, that light is still beaming through at 5 o'clock, and
That's
we
lovely.
get the clock's just changed here as we figured out, so we get
Yes.
an
Yes.
extra hour of sunshine now every day. So
Yes. Yeah. I think our clock go back this Sunday. I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's usually
So
there's one weird week where we're only
that week.
4 hours apart. So
Yes, I was speaking to a friend of mine who does lots of international teaching, and he's like, that 1 week of time changes just screws my whole calendar up.
it's
So everyone has to get
extremely
shifted.
confusing. Yeah,
But yeah, I just don't know why we don't set it half an hour ahead and just leave it,
I know, or just leave it. To be
or
honest,
just leave
I
it.
do
Yeah,
I do so much traveling that we just last week I was in last weekend I just got back, just drove back down from Alabama.
yeah.
But we were in Pensacola, Florida first, and that little bit of Florida is on Central Time, so they're an hour behind. But then the clocks changed while we were there,
Yeah.
so then we were 2 hours behind the original time we left Florida, and then we crossed back into Florida. It was just like, what time is it now?
It
Fortunately,
doesn't.
your phone these days updates itself automatically, so
Yes,
you can always. But
yeah.
it was
If it wasn't for that,
confusing.
we'd be screwed. Yeah,
Yeah, and same in back in January, we had a gig in Vegas, Las Vegas, and then we drove down to Phoenix.
yeah.
Well, you kind of driving south to it, but Phoenix is on Mountain Time and Vegas is on West Coast time.
Oh
So
man.
I'd planned the whole trip out, check out the hotel, get on the road, and not realizing we were going to lose an hour. So we were still fine, but it
Yeah.
was a bit later than I wanted to get there because we lost an hour on the way. So
Oh
always
man.
something to think about with this stuff.
Do you know what? When like traveling and touring around the UK, we just don't have any of that. It had never occurred to me that when you travel and tour around the states, you've got to factor in those. Is it 3 time zones? 4?
Three, right? No, four. East Coast, Central, Mountain, and West Coast. Yeah, four time zones.
And if you
And
forget, how,
you can find yourself on a tour if you do like around the lake, and so you're doing Chicago and then going over to like Michigan,
yeah,
and it changes so you can do like back and forth across it constantly. So you really have to be on the ball of what time you're supposed to be getting at the gig.
yeah, damn, just leave an hour grace for everything.
Always, yeah.
Yeah. So, what brought you down to Florida?
Not really by design. I mean, I started touring the US in 2010 extensively. That sort of became my main place to be touring, and we drove around like maniacs. But back then, I would head back up to Toronto most of the time in Canada due to a previous relationship, past life.
Okay.
And which had been, a decade of sort of back and forth with Canada and the UK, and always then always going to the US as a kid. My dad's been in California since '88, so I used to spend a bit of the
Okay.
year there every year
Yeah.
from the age of 11. But then 2014, been working with a rhythm section out of Miami, which I still do actually. Aaron Glukoff, who was just drumming with me this past weekend and does a lot of my stuff, was one of the guys I was working with, and so just had a change of personal scenario after a decade, and it was December 2014, and
Okay.
I thought, well, I'm going to Florida, and hang out, and ended up still here, and then I'd never lived anywhere near the sea or with good weather all year. Well, good weather all year, apart from the one day you get a hurricane. You get all the bad weather get all the bad weather in one day.
In 12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was just a very nice standard of living, affordable for
Yeah.
at the time affordable for
Yeah.
a blues guitarist, and then I had the opportunity to buy a little property
Mm-hmm.
it was a wonderful. I wasn't, if you'd have told me 2 weeks before I'd be buying somewhere, I'd have said get out of here. But I was 40 at the time, and it seemed like for a sort of lifelong transient musician who'd been on and off planes and vans and planes, trains, and automobiles type existence for 20 years or more. It was like, yeah, it probably is good to have somewhere of my own, right? So I did. I put some, I took the opportunity, and I'm glad I did, because we didn't know. It was 2017, and we didn't know what was coming with the pandemic. So then I lost all my gigs for a year and a half.
Yeah,
my main work, but I had this place safe and sound, so it was not a bad place to ride out that whole situation. And we were able to be outside in the good weather. My girlfriend, my partner Christine, is from New York, and we were still going back and forth for a long time before that. And she ended up down here at the start of the pandemic and stayed the whole time, because we couldn't really go back to New York. But there were people, in their little apartment buildings in New York that couldn't get out. I know the same in London and for people. So we could go to like the beach or the pool or for a walk, and the weather was great, and it was a fairly manageable existence. The lockdown was light,
Yes, that first one for us. I think we went into lockdown. I think it was February, March. And we just bought we just moved house. We just bought a little house, and it had a garden. Prior to that, we had a little 2-bedroom flat, and I kept saying to my wife at the time, it's like, if we were in that flat, we'd be going fucking crazy,
going mental,
and for us, that summer was a glorious summer. There wasn't one day of rain or grey skies. It was just like from April all the way through to like October. It was just beautiful.
Yeah. I must say, we kind of enjoyed. I mean, I would love to have done some gigs, because it's weird. That was the longest I'd not done any gigs since I'd started doing gigs. I mean, from the age of 13, I'd done a gig. Even from when I was 13, we did 2 or 3 that first year. So it was the longest I'd not done a gig in 30 years. But it was like a forced sabbatical to start with, and I hadn't slept in the same bed for that long since I was a kid at my mum's house. You know what I mean? Like it was because I've been at 100 different hotel rooms a year for the past 20 years. So it was kind of nice to be forced to just stop for a minute, and then it was like, okay, we got to play. Go,
off you go. Yeah,
but all this setup here, I'd never had a home studio, or and I just started putting something together beforehand. Luckily, because then everything went online for a year and a half, and I was lucky to have the True Fire, the company that I worked with for the lessons. Were really great. They really stepped up to help. They knew the situation their artists were in. So I just had this baptism of fire of learning to audio interfaces, and I'd never had any of that.
Wow, okay.
Recording was always going into a large room with a band and playing like a gig, but in the studio. So.
Okay, well, I mean, I think it was a steep learning curve for everybody, regardless of what kind of industry you're in. And that first lockdown, we actually, like I said, we enjoyed it. We had a great time. It was lovely.
It was like the least stressed I'd been ever, in a way, because I'm on a hamster wheel because I do everything. I have my friend Jay Stallman that sort of helps manage me and manage things, and I have my booking agent, and I have my tour manager Joost Tazelaar in the Netherlands for European tours. But other than that, I'm doing everything, So I do my own tour management here. I do my agent books the show, but then the logistics of me, and so I'm always like on figuring out the next. Got to book these flights. Got to book these rooms. Got to, It's a very definition of a small business that I run. So,
yes, I mean that's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah, I do all the stuff, and then I have to go play at the end of it. So we drove 8.5 hours up to Pensacola last week and did 12 hours straight back down, but I'm driving the bus myself, which is okay. Because I say bus, van, minivan. But so did Albert King and Albert Collins. They drove their own vans.
If it was good enough for those guys, it's good enough for the rest of us. So, I mean, with all this stuff going on, with the gigs, the shows, the tours, the having to book everything, what does your practice sessions look like? Do you still practice? Do you call it practice? Is it?
I've never called it practicing. I just play. There's always a guitar.
Yeah, within arm's reach.
There's all this place usually looks like if you've ever seen the Stevie Ray Vaughan Cold Shop video, and he just keeps reaching behind the couch and pulling another guitar out and pulling another one. They're everywhere, So I'm not a practice. This is a don't do as I do as I say type advice. I've never practiced. I've always played music. What I've learned has been to be able to play music rather than the guitar.
Right.
So I've never thought that I've practiced the guitar. And I came to realize, actually, I haven't already talked about the pandemic period, but I really realized during the pandemic period that I learned to play mostly in the room with guys in a band. The minute I decided I was going to play guitar, age 13, and I'd been messing about with it. This has been something that I'd been building, but then when I was like, I'm doing it, I started a band immediately at school. I was 13, and I went back to school after the summer break in 1990, and I said, I'm starting a band, and I'm playing guitar. Right. And my friend Chris goes, I'll play bass, and my friend Fraz says, I'll play drums, and my friend Rob said, he already played a bit of guitar. We were 13 years old, and we spent every minute in the school music room. And so I learned like that. Honestly, I would play at home and figure stuff out from records, but it was there was never an idea of like, I never ran scales or ever did that. It's probably a slow way to go about it, but it was all about making music with other people together. Maybe I'm like the last garage band generation, I'm a Gen Xer, and that's how we learn. And then we go home and we'd listen to the records, figure something out, figure out the song, go in and play it. So it's always been that experience. And anything, I don't read, still don't read, don't write music. It's always been a complete audio, oral experience of that. And if I needed to know something, Johnny Henderson, my longtime organ player in the UK, I went to the same school as him. He was a couple of years below me. So we've been playing together since 96. We did our first gig. He knows stuff, so I would say, Johnny, what's this? Or, but it was all even learning the scales. They were sounds to me and intervals, and I know what they are called now, but it was that way round. So just trying to play music like a garage band dude, and just picking up stuff. So as I say, I probably I don't know what it would have been like if I had have studied, but it's always an ear thing for me.
Well, I think I've always said that's the most musical way to learn music. If you can sit down with, sheet music and pads and YouTube and whatever, and have someone teach it and show it to you. But I do a lot of teaching, and one of the things I try and instill, like instantly, the first question I always ask is, what music do you listen to? What your favorite band? What are your favorite singers, songs? I'm always shocked at the amount of students that say that they don't listen to music.
Right. I mean, how are you going to know what to play? I know exactly what you're saying. I've just 2-3 weeks ago, I did a weekend guitar clinic camp, a residential thing. And this is so common now, so common, that it seems like everybody's using every available sense other than their ears to try and play the guitar. And I'm like, they're using their eyes. They want tablature for everything. They're watching instructional videos, watching them, watching my TrueFire course. That's great. Thank you for getting them. But you can't play music without using your ears. That's the first piece of gear. And people are using their fingers. They're using all the other senses available to them and not their ears. And I find it absolutely staggering. And it's just, the thing is, there's so much information now, so much information. Where do you even start? And it's easy to get caught up in information. And I spend most of the weekends or, clinic things that I do saying, you got to just enjoy playing music and love music. And then it will come to your ear and your mind, but it has to be informed by what you listen to,
Yeah.
And I learned pretty much, even to this day, 90% of what I know and play still, I learned from a handful of records, if you know what I mean by that. It wasn't, now I've got every B.B. King record and every Stevie Ray and Hendrix bootleg. But I didn't have that. And I learned from a couple of B.B. King records and a couple of Stevie records. And actually it was taped copies of my dad's vinyls for the most part. I'm a tape generation. But it wasn't a massive amount of stuff. It was like I had an Albert King record and an Albert Collins record. And, later on, then I had, when I started to think about some jazz stuff, I got Kind of Blue by Miles Davis because Robin Ford said in an interview, you should have Kind of Blue. So that was my jazz record. That was jazz. And I had enough.
If you're going to pick a jazz record, that's the record you pick.
That's what he said in this interview. He's like, if you want to learn jazz, you got to have Kind of Blue. So I went and bought it, but if you were to learn or try and transcribe, I never did. Again, don't do as I do as I say. If you were to learn and transcribe all the horn solos on Kind of Blue onto the guitar, you'd be one of the greatest jazz guitarists of all time. It's it's all there. It's all there. You don't need any more information than that. And so between the amount of information available and then people want to play blues, but they haven't really. They're starting at like Stevie Ray or Gary Moore or I don't know, Joe Bonamassa or John Mayer these days, and that's great guitarists, but that's really trying to run before you can walk, Whereas if you listen to some older BB stuff, it's all there, and if you can do what he does, then you can start to add the complexity to it. But I've spent a lifetime saying this, that you're not going to be able to do something complex if you can't do something. Say, if you can't play a solo with one note and make music with one note, then adding another note is not going to make it better. So can you play? People come, they want to know about how you play that diminished stuff. But I'm say, well, first of all, if you want to play on guitar, you should listen to Robin, because that's his thing. But also, can you play a good solo without playing diminished? You're like, are you missing something? You know what I mean? It's like so that it's all putting the cart before the horse in a lot of stuff. And it's just, I try and just get back to, let's just try and play some music that sounds good. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's always the benchmark of anything is, does it sound good? Do you like it? If you like it, then maybe someone else will like it. And I get a lot of students that say that I want to learn all the modes of the major scale. And I heard that I need to learn how to play the Dorian mode. It's like, okay, well, do you know what it sounds like? Yeah, this is what it sounds like. I go, all right, okay. Do you like that sound? If it's a yes, then we'll continue. If it's no, you don't really like the sound of that F sharp over that A minor, then leave it.
Right.
Maybe in 10 years' time you will. You go, all right, I'm really starting to hear that slightly outside hip note.
Yeah.
Let's look at it now.
Sorry. I think a big misconception is that learning all the scales will give you music, but it doesn't. They're just scales. They're just notes.
Yeah.
It gives you possibilities that you can choose from, but the only thing, I should qualify, I'm always exclusively talking about improvising as well, if you know what I mean. Because that's all I do. I can't even play my own solos again. And that's something that's a blessing and a curse, but or as my friend Tomo Fujita once explained, well, your boundaries can show you what your strengths are. Your weaknesses show you where the boundary is, and within it are your strengths. So I've embraced the fact that I'm not good at playing something exactly on demand, and I just play what comes to mind or to heart, I suppose. But what was I saying before that? I can't remember. So many concepts here, but
yes, hip notes, slightly outside.
Yeah, it's just that's right.
Music.
The scales they're just not going to tell you anything that's about the music or they're not going to tell you which one of the notes in the scale is going to sound good at any given time. It's just information. So and I worry, I just say that's not a reason to not learn them. But that is not what is going to make the music sound good. It's just information. It's just a list of ingredients for a dish.
I don't know why I was thinking of this. I was thinking of it today. And so if you get, if you want to learn all of these different scales, the diminished scales, or the modes, the major scale, all this kind of stuff, I kind of likened it to if you wanted to write a story and you said, okay, here's a typewriter, here's a Mac, here's a pen, here's some paper, here's some charcoal, here's the ground. Like, these are all just little vehicles that you can use to write a story. But it doesn't matter how many more tools you add. Is your story worth listening to? Is it worth telling? What is it you're talking about? And I think that always gets lost in amongst all of the, the YouTube videos and the Instagram reels of, you've got to learn this, you've got to learn that. And people, like, making music, telling stories is the thing that gets kind of pushed to the back a little.
Yeah, I've never related to that. You've got to do anything. It's art to me. So what you've got to do is whatever you want to say, or whatever makes you feel good when you express it, or that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in playing music with other good musicians and making something happen that's bigger than the sum of the parts. So I mean, I do find myself in a strange place these days because you contacted me via Instagram, which I do venture onto. Because I have to. I don't think I'd have any social media if I didn't have to promote my career. I don't think I'd bother with it. So I keep the relationship is kind of one step back from it for me. But I've never been into I'm sure I could have much bigger social media following if I posted the daily video of me sat here with 1 minute of hot guitar chops. But the problem is I don't relate to that, so I'm not inspired to do it in any way. It's not, and because what I came to realize is what I have to offer as an artist actually takes 90 minutes or 2 hours to give you. It's an entire arc to a concert from each song I've chosen, because that gives you a little course, to taste. And I don't know what I do in 1 minute. I don't know what I do in 1 minute.
Barely getting warmed up.
Or I don't know. It's like, no, there's no context for it. So I can play you a minute of guitar, and then of course, I could do 100 takes till I get the one, because that's what everybody's doing, right? It's not. There's none of this is real, or in the moment. And I've seen it firsthand where people have sat in on gigs who were well known for putting up great clips, but in the context of a gig or improvising a solo, that's really not their strength. So again, that's not a criticism so much as I don't relate to that stuff, and it seems like they don't necessarily relate to getting up with a band and jamming it out. So it's interesting, this kind of divergence of what guitar playing is generationally almost. It's like, to a lot of people it's almost exclusively an online thing now.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I guess if you learnt, from online courses or YouTube videos or TrueFire videos, and you maybe you have a teacher that you visit online once a week, or that will feel like your home.
Mm-hmm.
Getting out on stage is like, well, this is really alien abstract. But if you started like yourself, the first thing you did was start a band, getting into find a room, a small
Yeah.
space, and just start making noise. That will feel like home. So then
It's
it's
just
is it a
something
yeah,
that wasn't, and I don't know if I'd have been born later, like I got my first cell phone the same year as I did my first professional gig in
yeah,
'97, and just moved to London, and so you could just get a cell phone. But if I'd have been born with the technology, I'm sure I would have used it to learn,
mm,
but I'm glad I wasn't. I'm glad I had to rewind the tape and find
yeah,
that bit again and just keep rewinding until I,
yeah. I think I
figured
was
it out.
a few years after you. I had the A/B repeat on the CD player.
There you go. You could
That's
loop, like
yeah,
early
yeah.
looping. Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah, EQing some of the bass out and try to push the trebles. So, can you hear that line? What is that?
Right. Right.
But
Yeah. But it goes in a certain way,
mm,
it goes into your head in a certain way like that when it's not offered to you explicitly to learn. And again,
yeah,
this none of what I'm saying should be taken negatively
mm,
or as a criticism of the resources that
mm,
we now have available to us. They're phenomenal,
yeah,
phenomenal. And but I'm not upset that I didn't. How about I put it
yes.
that way?
That's a very diplomat. That's a politician's answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I certainly think that it takes something away. I mean, it gives so much, but it takes a little something away, and I think that little something is listening and like the achievement to sit and figure out a riff or just to figure out a chord progression or
Yeah.
a whole solo is, even if it takes you all day, 2 days, a week, you get to the end
Yeah.
of it, there's a real sense of achievement. And I think that certainly I see it with a lot of the young students that I teach. They just want it on a plate. Is it okay? How much work do I have to do versus how much work does the student have to do? Because
Yeah.
it should always be, you've got to do something. You've got to at least meet halfway. I'm not doing
Yeah,
anything.
definitely. And it's how, yeah, I want to be able to do that thing. And it's like, well,
Mm,
that thing is only useful in the context of what you're going to do it in,
yeah.
like just unless you just want to be able to do some ridiculous technique stuff. But then what? Then what? Then what?
Yeah.
And that's fine. Again, it's like it depends on what you want to do completely.
Mm,
But I never even learned like whole solos, note for note. I would like try and get the vibe of it, and then I
yeah.
would jam with the records,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
trade and try and weave. So maybe I'd learn like one cool line as best I can, but it didn't even
Mm,
really matter. I wasn't like, oh, I got to get that. There's like 3 licks. I'm using air quotes a lot
mm.
lately. I don't know why, but forgive me. But 3 licks that I still play that actually learn.
Mm.
Like there's I learned one Eric Johnson lick, and I don't, man, 20 years ago, I was like, I'm gonna figure that out exactly,
Yeah.
and I
Which one was
got
it? Do you
it.
remember?
And what's that?
Which one was it?
It's a full 3 octave. It's from low F to F on the high E at the 13th
Yeah.
fret,
Okay.
from the first fret in the outro solo of "Lonely in the Night."
Oh, it's such a tune.
Yeah, and I was like, it's this big giant arpeggio, F minor
Yeah.
arpeggio kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to learn an Eric Johnson lick because I love
Mm,
it. I love him, but I'm not like trying to play like that.
yeah.
So, but I thought, wonder if I can get that. So I get it down. So I used it on my record, like from 2009, but on a shuffle. So I swung it instead. So I play
Right.
in triplets.
Yeah. Yeah.
He plays it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Eric Johnson kind of like 16th note thing or
Yeah.
something. But I play it in triplets, so it's the notes are the same,
Okay.
but it's kind of disguised. So that even if I was going to work something out note for note, I kind
Mm.
of would then take it and make it fit my music. But there's, we all learned or my 90s blues playing buddies all know the solos, the Misdirected Blues solo by Robin Ford on that song, Misdirected Blues. The third chorus of the solo, he plays this kind of bop line. And we all learned that one because it contains everything that you'd never heard before if you grew up on electric blues. And then he throws that in there and you're like, okay, what the hell just happened? And it's got everything in it. He's got like some chromaticism. He's got a little diminished. He drops a 2/5 into the 4 chord, so it's like in C, it's in C. So the end of the line goes G minor C to the F, so it's like a 2/5 to the 4. Within like the first 8 bars of that solo, he's just giving you every jazz move ever. And so we learned that one as well. It's like, and when I speak to friends like Josh Smith or Kirk Fletcher, then we all have the same references of like, oh, holy, that was a whole thing. To hear that stuff. But other than that, it was just jamming along for the most part and picking up bits and trying to pick up the vibe, trying to pick up the vibe more than exactly playing
feel.
it.
Yeah.
The feel, And I don't do it so much anymore, but 20 years ago when I was starting my own band, if we were going to just do like a straightforward blues shuffle, I'd be like, okay, I'll make this one kind of Albert Collinsy. In my mind. But if you were to overlay my playing and Albert's on top of each other, they wouldn't be any of the same things. But it sounds Albert Collinsy because I'm thinking of him.
Yeah.
And I know what that sound is. I want to,
that very sharp attack on the picks, bridge pickup.
Yeah. So it's a tonal thing, but it's a timing thing, phrasing, and there's a sort an attack, a punchiness to the. So I always thought of it like that. It's almost like all of these guys. It's so easy for us, man, these days. Like those guys invented the music, BB, and there was no predecessors to them for they. I mean, of course they had their influences, but they're like the pillars of creation. They all have these singular sounds. When you listen to the big giants of electric blues, they all have these singular sounds. So we can just go, I'll take a pinch of Albert Collins, a pinch of BB. It's really easy to. And that's why it's so important if you want to play blues to listen to those guys. That's what I kind of lost track of saying earlier, I think. But it's like starting with, starting with me, is I'm just made up of them. And if you go back, it's easy to get great stuff that you can take with you right now.
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean it's easy to do. I just mean it's there. It's easy to readily accessible in their playing because they have a smaller vocabulary that they're working from.
Yeah,
but it is music. Like BB King never does anything stupid, and he doesn't just play some nonsense. It's a perfectly composed little solo, and that's where you can really learn how to play great is by listening to those guys.
Definitely. And so, what's your approach? I mean, do you ever sit down and sort of think to yourself, "I really should get better at something," or how do you approach, getting better as a musician, or do you not? Are you just happy to maintain it?
What I'm interested in these days is sounding more and more like me. So I've come to see that as a process of refinement, really, as much as anything. So I'm actually trying to play less. Is my goal is to not play as much. Like I said, BB never plays anything stupid, and I would like to not play anything stupid, and I still do because the guitar player in me can't help but just go for something, So taking chances and going what comes to mind, and so it's more like that. It's not like there's a bunch. I've been playing 34 years, full all the time.
Yeah.
There's not like I wish I sounded a certain way and don't. This is how I obviously want to sound at this point. Otherwise I would have sounded different by now. So yes, it's not like I can't do stuff that I'd like to be able to really. I kind of like what I do. So now it's more like getting it I hear it in other players now. You start going, oh, yeah, that sounds like me, when you hear somebody playing. So, and I mean, that's a really cool thing to experience. So I'm interested in that. So sometimes, yeah, it's like editing almost. Getting it down to what's the most Matt Schofield solo I can play on this, because all my heroes have that, and that's another thing that I just don't hear being encouraged. So it seems like somebody puts something up on YouTube, and so then everybody puts their version of it up, and it's like kind of this competition to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's weird, because it's cooler to do something completely different. To me, or more interesting. So all my heroes are 1 or 2 note guys. There's no mistake in any of them, So I want to be like John Schofield, where it's just the quirkiest, most unique. I mean, he doesn't have any lines of anybody else's left in his playing now. Do you know what I mean? It's that he's completely John, or Robin too. Robin Ford. It's not like, oh, there's a bit of Albert Collins, there's a bit of whatever. It's just Robin when he plays. He was even arguing with me one night about that, because I was saying that he was more like that than Eric Johnson, who you do hear Eric's amalgamation more obviously. It's a bit of Hendrix, bit of Clapton, bit of Wes, bit of, and he puts them all together, and it still obviously sounds 100% like Eric Johnson, but you can pick out who he's drawing from at any given moment. So
Robin disagreed with you.
had a good robust chat with Robin one night, because he was like, no man, he's got that more than me, and I was like, no, to me you're only Robin. He was arguing against himself.
What's your view on playing live and sort of trying to play on the edge? Like, do you embrace mistakes? Do you try and avoid them?
I don't really care that much. It was like I didn't care, and then I had to start caring again, because everybody started filming everything, and it's felt like for the last 10 years that every gig is now a potential live record that go, and I'm quite heavily recorded. Somebody mentioned this to me, that if you, like, for whatever reason, like it's almost like every gig I do is on YouTube in its entirety these days, which makes like everything is like a live record. So then I cared, because I'm like, this, it's the the observer effect, right? The very act of observing something changes it. And definitely the act of sticking a camera in somebody's face changes it. So I got really hung up in that for a long time, because I'm like, I don't want this recording. I want it, in order for me to play, I have to be 100% in the moment. That's how I play. Because I can only play like that. So I have to be like focused in just letting it come to me, and I found it really was bothering me that it was going to be, it's like, it's not supposed to be forever. It's supposed to be an experience that you have just now, that you can never have again. I'm a meal in a great restaurant, that's the experience I'm interested in offering. And it's like, it won't even be as good if you go back tomorrow night, if the meal was amazing, It's those kind of experiences are what I'm interested in. So the filming thing changed it now, and I don't care again now.
Right.
But it taken like a decade to get.
Was there anything you did to try and? Was there anything you did to try and get yourself over or through it, or do you just kind of just suck it up and just wait?
No, I just let it go. There's nothing you can do. We can't put the toothpaste back in the tube with filming. But I will say, it doesn't mean that there's some venues like now my play Ronnie Scott's in the UK, which is one of my favorite gigs. We'll be back later this year again, and they don't allow any filming or recording or even photos. They have a house photographer because that's the experience that they aim to provide, is that you're seeing something unique and special to the moment that you're in, and that's it. That's what you're here for.
Yeah.
And I find it's incredibly liberating. And the great irony, of course, is that usually when you're not being filmed and recorded by every single phone in the room, or even big people come and set up big cameras these days, and they'd have been thrown out of the venue for bootlegging the gig 20 years ago.
I know, it's
like,
crazy.
You're out.
Yeah.
When that's all taken away, usually you have the best gig, and then you go, I wish someone had recorded that. But it's the observer effect. Is if they had, it wouldn't have been the same gig,
Yeah.
So to go back to what you were asking, the whole thing for me is like so close. My playing is so close to who I am. I don't know who I am without being this guitar player. It's been my whole life. I am supremely confident about what I play at the given moment. What I play, even if it was a mistake, was the right thing to play then, because it's what I played. 100% confident, right?
Yeah.
5 minutes later, I'm not confident at all. If I don't like listening back to gigs, I have to, if we're recording live stuff or even a record, I have to leave it some amount of months to listen and go, okay, that wasn't too bad. And now if I hear my record from 15 years ago come on somewhere in a club or a festival, I'm like, oh, okay, that was pretty good. Because at the time, almost immediately after it, I hate it. But at the time I played it, I don't know whether this even makes sense, but it's truly like in the moment, it's 100% the only thing that I could have played. So it's the right thing, and I'm totally confident with it. And because I'm making the choice to play whatever it is I played based upon what's happening with me at the moment and the audience are part of that moment, so they're going to respond to it for the same reason I played it. But outside of the moment, everything changes. So it's so at that point, there's not really even like mistakes, because I rarely played like a big clanger on something, but then the idea is like, greatness, I kind of realized then as an improviser, lies in how small you can make the gap between what you meant to play and what you actually played. Right. There's greatness, and the guys that can close the gap and just completely, like Oscar Peterson, he's one of my heroes as an greatest. I'd make a good argument as he's one of the greatest improvisers of all time. It seemed like he had no gap, it was just constant flow. So there's the trick. How small can you make the gap between what you meant to do and what you actually did? And there's your greatness. So I think of it like that more than like mistakes, if you know what I mean.
Okay. And do you like your own playing?
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I sound how I sound is how I'm supposed to sound at this point. It's not like a feeling of like, I wish I could do this. It's more of a tone thing for me, though. If the tone's happening, then I'm good. I don't have to play very much at all. Excuse me. So a lot of this, a lot of the frustrations maybe on a gig is because I can't hear how I want, and I've been navigating a lot of stuff to make it comfortable again for me these days, because I have pretty severe tinnitus from a couple of incidents that weren't my volume, but somebody else's. And it's left me with pretty severe tinnitus that was really scary psychologically to face, like just think you're going to go crazy for a minute where you're like, this is never going to stop. Oh my God. It's, like anxiety and panic inducing.
Yeah.
So now I have to wear plugs. And so that's been like learning my tone again via plugs, because if I don't wear them, I'm scared to not wear them now, because I've the one last time I didn't wear that. One of the filters came out, so I'd lost the filter. I have the custom molded ones. They're the only things that I can possibly use.
Yeah.
And I only use the 9 dB, the lowest filters, but it's enough to take the edge off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the filters came out, got lost, and I was going to sit in with a friend for like 20 minutes on the end of their set. I thought I'll be all right for 20 minutes, it's just, and then the next day I woke up and my left ear was not only ringing, but rumbling as well. And I'm like, okay, that's it. If I want to do this, I have to wear plugs now. And so I've been navigating that a lot, getting used to it. It's like singing with your fingers in your ears. You can get more of your own voice. I miss so much just the sound of my amps loud and so I'm always trying out different ways to not play as loud, because we all used to be pretty loud.
Yeah,
Guitar's
we've all been told to turn down.
But mainly because the louder I play, and it's my gig, so it's free market economy. People are paying to see it. They don't seem to be leaving. So for the most part, I could play as loud as I want, but that also tends to make the rest of the band play louder, and then it becomes this ongoing thing. So I'm always trying to find ways to get the sound I want without being as loud. Now that's become the thing that I'm into, is how can I get a tone as happening as like that's 150 watt clean amp 2-rock that thing will take down buildings. So I'm always trying something, like I've been trying out some different kinds of attenuation or like slaving or reamping. I mean, still nothing better than that and a super reverb together where they sound best. There's never going to be anything better than that, but I just can't do it. If I want to do it for another 30 years, hopefully.
You never tried in-ear monitors? Or
no,
wasn't the same problem.
Yeah, I feel like I hate the sound of guitar. Like when we did the 2-rock in the jam thing with the full band last year, and I had to play with in-ears. I've got some good. They're not custom molded, but I used my like Westone or whatever they are. They are in-ear monitors. I used that for the session, and guitar just sounds horrible in tiny little speakers. And of course, the guitar was in the other room as well, because it has to be isolated on that so that people can mute your track. But then you've got no feel from the amp, so maybe if I still had the amp pushing behind me, there was some sensation. It might be all right, but I'm almost scared to do that, because my ears will get set off if I'm sat here working on like a session or something, and I'm got my head right in the monitors, and I monitor very low level. It'll still irritate them. Do you know what I mean? So the idea of having like a whole gig's worth of being directly injected into my ear I feel like it would irritate my ears now at this point, because I can't remember the name of the syndrome. My friend Jeff McElwain, who also suffers with tinnitus quite a bit, and he told me what it's called. But it's the thing where also loud sounds can then seem extra loud. You be like overly sensitive to stuff, and sometimes even just in a loud restaurant or bar, I'm like, I can't deal with this. You get this oversensitivity as well. So I try and it's plug it. It's like I got to bring everything down. So, and I think probably again it's a generational thing, because we were still playing with like real big amps and like in small rooms, not just the amps, drums and cymbals and loud everything. But with modern sound reinforcement, we kind of, with the crossover, like if you've got like a full Marshall stack, but you're in Madison Square Garden and there's no mics on it, like, or like the PA system that Hendrix was playing through wasn't modern sound reinforcement with all this power to it. They were using those big amps to fill auditoriums, That's different than using, and then a loud band playing in a little club with a low ceiling. So I think us kind of Gen X's got extra battered, because we had a bit about. Now everybody's on like modeling in ears or there's no loud amps anymore. Apart from good for Joe Bonamassa with the 7 of them all up there. I wish I could do that.
Yes, I know, man. So you haven't gone down the modeling route?
I have stuff, and I use it for. I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
I have an Axe Effects. I had the one 10 years ago, whichever it was, the one or two, and I've got one now. Incredibly useful for just if I need to play something quickly or do if we were doing a clinic or a lesson, it's way easier to insert that into all this digital stuff than try and do load box. I mean, I've tried a bunch of different load box things and all of that, and it's always a compromise. So I was like, well, for quick and easy results, it's only moving one step further back into the digital domain. It's like if you're using an aux or something, which is what I have to use for like my TrueFi courses are all 2-rock into aux. And I've done plenty of stuff from here. I have an aux. Then, because this is a condo, like I can't crank amps in this apartment. I'd be thrown out. And I'd love to have a space where I could have a recording room, but that's just not what I have available to me right now,
Yeah.
But I was like, well, I'm the minute I leave the amp, it's going digital domain, right? Everything, the speakers, the microphones, the preamps is into the recording software, all digital. So something like an Axe Effects is just one nudge further back. Now the amp is 2, still my same pedal board going in, and I only have like one preset on my Axe Effects that's mine. I'm not like I dialed in a sound that sounded good to me.
Yeah.
So I use that stuff, no problem. I have no qualms about it, but not on a gig. I can't imagine using modeling on a gig. I use it if I need to go into the digital domain,
Yeah. That's cool.
I will say my friend, great guitar player from Connecticut, Andy Abel, is one of the best guitar players that you've never heard of. He's a fixture on the scene in sort of Fairfield County, Connecticut. He's incredible. One of the best I know. But he has to cover a lot of different sounds. He's not like a blues guy. He's playing all kinds of different styles, even on one gig. And so he has like, what's the nice line 6 thing? The Helix? Something like that?
I think it's the Helix, yeah.
Yeah, he's got that as his floorboard. But then he sends that into one of those big old VHT stereo power amps, like the 6550s. So it's like 100 watts a piece stereo or something, into like Bogner Cube 112s or like Boogie 112 cabs stereo. So he's sending modeling into a big, massive power tube power amp and real guitar speakers. And if I sit in on his gig, I'm fine. I'm completely fine with that. And I will say I've thought for like traveling and stuff, because that's always a
bitch
when I have to fly in and I can't get a 2-rock there. I mean, Eli and Mac are some of my best friends in the world at 2-rock, and I've been with them for 19 years now, and they take care of me in every possible way that they can to make sure I have what I need. But sometimes it's just not possible, and I just have to go somewhere for one day and use whatever's there. And it crossed my mind, like, well, would something like the Axe Effects floorboard be better than this broken twin that I have to play through? And yes, it would. So I could see me going that route in an emergency like that. But right now I use a Kingsley Maiden preamp pedal. So it's a tube preamp. And then I ask for like a pair of DeVilles, and I just go into the effects return of the DeVille. So I'm completely bypassing the front. And that works really well. It sounds one Kingsley Maiden preamp pedal with one 12X7 tube, but all nicely hand wired. Yeah. It sounds so much better than the front end of the DeVille. It's not even funny. So, so that's what I do now. But would be quite nice to just throw up my preset.
Yeah, I did a session. I think it was this year. The session this year, and the engineer had one of those blue Kingsley pedals. So I was like, "What's that?" He said, "Oh, you never heard? It was the Jester, the Kingsley Jester."
That's like the big advanced version of what I have. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he's like, "Oh, you not heard this?" I said, "No." He's like, "Okay." So he plugged it all in. It was just, and I just used that pedal into my amp for the whole session.
Yeah, if you put that into the effects return of a DeVille, forget about it. It's just like as good as anything you can do. For backline, you're not going to do better than that. So. highly
nice.
recommended.
Oh yeah, I did look online, and they're very difficult to come by.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big back order. You got to wait, and that they sell for more used.
Yes,
But it's a
I'm
good
on.
investment if you're flying a lot. It'll save your ass.
Yeah.
And but it would be nice, maybe like the next generation of, like, I'd like if they XFX or those guys, Fractal or whatever. I don't need all the stuff, so I should speak to them, but I'd like
if
a
you're
one
listening,
preset version that's like taking my amp, but it's just much simpler, so it's like a pedal sized version. I know they do the floorboard one, but I still don't need that. I'm still going to use my pedal board. But if I could have, like, in fact, I saw online this, you can buy from some guy's website a Matt Schofield fractal preset pack. So I must get it and see what it sounds. It sounds like me. He's done modeled the two rocks and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to try, but it would be great if I had just had my sound in a little digital box that then I could send to some. But you still need a power amp and speakers and all of that I couldn't imagine just playing through monitors. Be horrible.
Yes, I know. I think Boss have just released an IR2 pedal.
Okay.
Which is impulse response. Please don't ask me to explain what an impulse response is, because I've asked people and I'm like,
oh, yeah.
But it's essentially just a Boss pedal that has 4 different amp settings on it.
Right.
And I thought, okay, because I've got some theatre gigs coming up, and I've been told specifically you can't use an amp. And so I just got one of these little pedals. I'm waiting for it to turn up. Fingers crossed, it's just out the back of the pedal board into this, and then into the front of house.
Yeah, I'm sure we're getting so close to it being like that, being extremely common. I mean, I'm doing blues festivals now where guys are using, fractal and line 6 stuff through wedges, no amps.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: it's not that it doesn't necessarily sound good. I mean, you would never know if I was playing through it or not. On a broadcast such as this, if we'd rigged up the guitar.
But you would.
I would, and
that's
exactly. And do you know what it is mainly? It's just not sexy.
Yeah.
There's no sex.
Yeah.
In an. I'm sorry. I don't really know them at all at Fractal, but this is not any slight on them because I really like it. For it's a really useful tool, but it's not sexy.
It's not, no.
To me. That is sexy. It's sexy to play through.
Yeah.
It makes you want to play, So that's how I see it, It's a bit like anything on the virtual internet version can be useful, but it's not as good as the real thing. And I think there's many examples of that we experience in life,
Yeah, I mean, if you're not feeling it on the stage, on the gig, or in the session, then it's going to affect your playing, and then you'll just come away going, it was just a little bit stale. I didn't really like that.
Yeah, it's part of like the fun of doing this So, but we are lucky. We're lucky. I mean, if we'd had the pandemic 10 years ago, I'd have been totally screwed. I wouldn't have been able to do any kind of online stuff, and now I can just hit a switch there and it's exactly as I left it, and I could play for you right now and it would sound 99% the same as one of my albums or something. It's wild. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I think, Matt, we will leave it there. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Sorry if I waffled on. I just saw it's the whole hour. Once I get going on this stuff, you'll never shut me up.
It's cool. So you said you were coming back to Ronnie Scott's.
Yeah, we just confirmed it today, October. This is a pre-announce for anybody in the know. I'm not sure when it's going to be officially announced to buy tickets, but we'll be there in October with the trio, with the new album available, because that's been a long time.
That's figuring that. Yeah, I was going to say that was what I meant to ask you. That I was like, the last album was it 2017?
2014, actually, for the last official records. 10 years. Yeah, long story. We'd need another hour for me to explain that, but
go for it.
Some of it's me, some of it's the music industry, some of it's we started, like 2018. We got together to write some tunes, and then there was a pandemic. And as I said, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to make a record in the living room here.
Yeah.
It's a so now it was a 15th anniversary record when we started writing the tunes. Now it's a 20th anniversary record of my original trio with Johnny and Evan from the UK. So it's the mix is being finished as we speak. So we'll have at least something out in May, and then we'll be Ronnie's. I'm also doing a blues festival in the north of England in August bank holiday. So that's not been announced yet, but there's a secret tip if anybody will be in the north on the August bank holiday weekend. So look out for that one as well. So there's like the first other UK gig. We did Ronnie's last year, and then there hadn't been anything since 2019 before the pandemic. So trying to show up back home now and again when the right thing comes along.
Yeah. Do you miss the UK?
Not like on a daily basis. There's certain things I always do when I go back. I miss a proper pub because there's only bars in
I was
America.
talking to, do you know Jake Fawn?
No.
Jake, he used to play with David Lee Roth up till very recently. And I was speaking to him yesterday, and I asked the same question. I said, what do you miss about the UK? He lives in LA, and he gave all these, it's great. I can go grocery shopping at midnight. I can get decent food after a gig in a diner and stuff like this. And he didn't mention the pub. And I just thought, if I lived in the States, I mean, I quit drinking a long time ago, but I still like going to the pub. And
right.
There's something about going to the pub that is just really nice.
I also had to address the amount of drinking, as you do at some point as a musician, so it's quite considerably different for me than it was 10 years ago or something. But I will, yes, a pub is a certain thing. Also, just, the community aspect of it. That is, there's a few places we know that we enjoy here, but it's still not the same.
Yeah.
And other than that, pies, because Americans think pie is a dessert with sweet stuff. But I miss steak and ale pies and Walker's salt and vinegar crisps. Other than that, legendary, But those are the things.
Anything the US does so much better than the UK?
Goodness, the reason I'm here is because I can work here. So that it does the kind of live music I play better, because I couldn't survive only playing in the UK. Because the US is enormous. But, that's why, like, the only real venue for me, even in London, is like Ronnie Scott's, where I can really do a high quality of concert without having to pull 10,000 people. You know what I mean? And it make it like financially viable for me to do it. And there's one of those in most of the main cities in the US, so I play the Iridium in New York. I play Yoshi's in San Francisco. I play Space in Evanston, Illinois, Chicago. I can go around and do those kind of rooms, and they have like state theaters and stuff. So that's why I'm here most of the time, is because I can work and make a living here, which I could not do in the UK on a blues circuit. So that it definitely does that better, and also getting to play with my heroes, like that would have never happened in the UK if alone. So it does the music better. It invented it. I guess that's part of the reason why I wanted to be here. This is where the music I love, and pretty much all modern music, other than Western classical and traditional folk music. But beyond that, popular music is from here and from the south of here, and so I guess I want to be a part of it.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well, again, we'll call it a day. And
man, thank you, Tim.
Thank you so much. And I'll keep an eye out for your Ronnie tickets and Ronnie dates, and I'll
please do come say hi
down.
if you.
I'll owe you a drink of some description.
There you go.
Cool, Matt. Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of the day, and we'll speak soon.
You too, mate. Pleasure.
Right,
Cheers.
Cool.